Joe, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Livingston.
Here.
Ms. Giuliani.
Here.
Mr. Tolmer.
Here.
Mrs. Bellinger.
Here.
Ms. Cimaroli. Here. And I'm Joe.
Thank you. No public comment from, or no public here, unless Joe has something to offer.
I have nothing to say other than you guys are doing a tremendous job.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Adoption of minutes from the May 27th, 2025 meeting.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, and Justine made the motion. And a second. Mike, second. Any discussion?
I do have a question.
Sure.
That this jogged my memory, even though I brought it up, about the dark sky lighting. And it was Brandy's recommendation that we speak to the solicitor.
Yeah, I've never talked to Tom.
Okay, so my question is that as this moves forward to, this resolution moves forward to council, is that something that should be discussed before this moves to council as is? Or,
Because we never got a definitive, do you want dark sky regulations or do you not want dark sky regulations? And if you have dark sky regulations with downtown district, it would just be lighting on buildings that are new within the downtown.
right. I mean, my only thing is that it didn't have to happen tomorrow. I mean, looking at this as a long-term strategy, I sort of thought that it would be a good opportunity to at least encourage the borough to look at that, for future.
Okay.
That's all. I mean,
Yeah.
that was my recommendation. So is that something we could amend this or?
Well, we still got a little bit to go with
Okay.
this.
All right.
Once you guys are done, like the next group of folks have to take the
Okay.
ball and run.
Okay,
So
all
if
right.
it's just a matter of we get this addressed before we pass the ball on,
Okay.
I just need some guidance, because like if it comes down to, Tom comes back and says, yeah, you can put that as a design requirement,
Yeah.
then it goes in, but it will only go in if you guys say, as a majority, say, yes, we'd like that as a part of this.
Okay.
If that's what you're saying, I can make sure that's passed on.
Anybody else have feelings regarding dark sky compliant lighting?
Is that where you have like the lighting so it doesn't like shine up?
Is that the purple lights over at like BJ's
No.
Club?
No, it's typically the light is shining down and it.
I think it's a really good feature because it eliminates light pollution.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree.
Did you?
No.
Okay, I think we make that recommendation.
Okay, so all of us work, and then I'll bounce it off to Tom tomorrow.
Yeah.
I talked to Tom today about the draft, and he had some recommendations, which we wanted him to do.
Mhm.
And he had another commitment tonight, so he's gonna jump on the Zoom call, but I have whatever we have for honeydews for him, he's waiting for orders tomorrow, so this is.
Okay, all right.
So I'll tell Tom, but if Tom comes back and says, no, that's not appropriate, we
Right.
just won't do it.
Okay.
Is okay with that?
No.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, a motion made by Justine, seconded by Mike, to adopt the minutes with the,
Actually, I do have a question. This is for next time around. We're talking about minutes from last.
we are talking about the May 27th.
But do I need to suggest now or how best way being to do this? To have some kind of positive thing from all of us about what we talked about before the meeting started. Like every one of us said the bump outs were awesome. Every one of us said that this was awesome and that was awesome.
We can address that under the active transportation plan.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, I just think
Discussion later.
we should, if not take a vote, it should be the general sense of the quality of work or or the good idea. We need to get that.
basically what we're doing is adopting the minutes as.
Yeah, I know, it's just, I'm sorry, it was, when you were adopting that, that's where I wrote it, unfortunately, in my notes myself.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay. Approval of minutes, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, minutes are adopted. Downtown zoning, Brandy's.
It's not on, I didn't get a text back, but just to review, so in your packet is first draft of ordinance 1034. This essentially lays out the new zoning district for the downtown district. Everything we went over in the minutia has been put into the legal framework of an ordinance, so that's what we have here. So first graph is the actual limits of the district. Talking to Tom, there'll be an amendment to this that will actually identify all the parcels that were all on here so that there's no confusion. So that beyond the map, section 1 will include a legal description that will show the addresses and parcel numbers so that there's no doubt. So that'd be the only amendment there. Talking to Tom, he had concerns regarding marijuana dispensaries and pharmacies. What he said is that you have to treat a pharmacy and marijuana dispensary as one and the same. So if you do make a marijuana dispensary conditional use, pharmacy has to be conditional use. Or if you prevent pharmacies in the downtown, or if you prevent marijuana dispensaries, you have to prevent pharmacies in the downtown. Those are one and the same. What he's suggesting is allow them, but have strict parameters on conditional uses. He was here for Community Day, and he walked in to do Black Bear dispensary. He says, I do not believe that that facility meets the definition of a dispensary. He goes, I do not understand how they legally can call themselves a dispensary. They don't meet the requirements of a dispensary. He says, I feel they're more of a vape and whatever you call the new Black Bear dispensary. It's on the corner of Tarbox building. Yeah, right in the corner of the match.
We have two.
Yeah.
Well, the only bright side is if we were going to have 3, now we're only having 2. So I'm not explaining that, but he went in there and said that he wants to clearly define vape shop a little more stricter than what we had here. And I explained, is there a way that we can just prevent them, like you guys said, and just allow them in the mixed use? He said, sure, that's within your rights. You can even prevent dispensaries. He says, just remember, you're going to be kicking out a pharmacy, and Main Street welcome right here, and if we sat there, prevent the behavior coming back. Even though that property is a non-conforming grandfather use, if another right wanted to come in, I don't think you guys would be against that, you know? We went through that conversation. So, once Tom flushes out those details with Brandy this week, we'll just share it with you before I send it off to Borough Council, final draft. But those were the only couple comments Tom had. And the other comment he had was that, and we talked about it before in detail, was medical clinics. And he wanted to strictly define like methadone and Suboxone clinics in the framework of a medical clinic. He says he didn't want to set us up for career and political suicide in respect to conditional uses. A lot of people think when they have a conditional use hearing, that's your time to grab your pitchfork and come to town hall and say, we don't want it.
Right.
You can't vote for them.
Right.
And it's sad because at the end of the day, the planning commission and council, if you check all the boxes for the conditional use, we legally can't deny it.
Right.
And it's hard to relay that message on to the townspeople in every town because they hear a hearing, come tell me what you want, and if they come and the majority of the room is against it, like that's usually what you have, because people don't want it in their backyard. They say, you know what, Justine, she voted for that. It's time to get rid of Justine. Meanwhile, in all reality, you're setting yourself up for failure. So he says, I don't want to make too many things conditional use that are controversial, because in all reality is we're setting ourselves up for just angry hearings that in all reality we're not going to get anything out of.
Right.
So I just have a question. So with there's language in there about the vape and dispensaries should not be, not dispensaries, vape, should not be located closer than 500 feet to another vape shop.
Yeah, that was within the mixed use district. So she added that for the mixed use district only. So what happens here is that this gets kind of confusing, where this looks all like for the downtown,
Yeah, right.
but it plugs in for different districts. So it says that you're allowed to have them by conditional use in the mixed use district. So if we're setting, we're up for conditional use, we have to then define what are the conditions. So this is what you see the within 500 feet, so that within the mixed use district, you can have them, but they're only within the 500 feet of each other. That's what that's saying.
Does that mean they're only in the mixed use and not in the downtown?
Correct, but the existing facilities that are there will be allowed to continue.
Right.
And if they close up and like a year later, another Johnny Globe wants to come in there, it's permanent.
So section 4 is related to mixed use?
Yes. It is and it isn't. Section 4 sets the parameters for what would be a conditional use. So remember how I was saying is that if you apply for a conditional use and you meet ABC, these are the ABCs. Yes. Because we can't say, yeah, it's allowed by conditional use in the mixed use district without laying out what the actual conditions are.
Right.
It is confusing when you see the two districts, even though we're only talking one district. That makes sense.
I work today, Joe, so
I hear you.
my brain is.
It's hot out.
Well, and you know, it gets crazy when you start talking about one district and then, you know, it references another section of the code somewhere else.
Yes.
And you start bouncing back and forth because that other section was referring to industrial use, let's say, and it gets.
I had the same conversation with Brandy. My first quick look at this, I call her up and you missed it. And she goes, no, it's in the back. I go, what are you talking about? So I had the same thing in my first week. She had to give me my problem. I'm surprised.
I feel like I'm at the back of the classroom here, not completely understanding. It's doing me a huge favor, just the medical marijuana, vape shops, et cetera, et cetera. Will those be allowed downtown?
No. But the dispensary,
But,
if it comes back to us, if you want to allow pharmacies in the downtown, so this is something we need to work out right now, so it's
Yeah.
good that you brought this up.
Yeah.
If you want to have a pharmacy on Main Street, that has to be by conditional use. And if you're allowing a pharmacy, by default, you have to allow what is a legal Pennsylvania definition dispensary, and that's where he was going back with Blackbird saying, I don't think they fit the Pennsylvania definition of a dispensary. And it's why you want to sharpen the definitions of our ordinance to match state regulations for a dispensary. That's when he walked in there and did a little tour, he goes, that's a vape shop. So,
Can we require dispensaries to not exist within 500 feet of each other, but not require pharmacies the same condition? Like, could we have 10 pharmacies?
no, he said you had to
500?
treat them the same.
Exactly
They're
the
one and the
same
same.
way.
Correct.
I have heard for years about the pharmaceutical power of marijuana. I have not heard one single drop of information that indicates vaping is pharmaceutical. Does it hide under that sometimes?
No, but I think a dispensary
Uh-huh.
is equal to a pharmacy based upon state law. They're two equals.
Because
You're not,
dispensary is a legalized medical issuance of a
Dispensing what?
marijuana,
medical
methadone.
marijuana.
Okay, marijuana, I'm not talking about marijuana.
Methadone, I'm sorry.
I'm concerned about the things that we have that there's a conversation about more of, which is
Vaping is.
Vapes are out of downtown. That's it, keep it simple.
Okay.
Just in the M district. Okay.
I know it would be a wonderful, I think it would be a wonderful thing not to have it anywhere, but at least if it's around downtown, it's.
So then what do we want to do about pharmacies and the dispensary? Let them be conditional use and then just ask about the 500 feet rule? Because I don't think you're going to have two, you know.
Two pharmacies.
Two dispensaries.
Two dispensaries, you know. I think 500 feet is a block. So right now, I And hypothetical, they're probably 500 feet apart right now, the Rite Aid and the Black Bear, if we consider that a dispensary.
The Rite Aid and,
Black Bear, the new one.
oh, isn't that next door to Dewey? Is it down the street?
It's down the street, right in LaBella Beach. So,
I'm fine with that. I mean, I don't, what do you guys think?
I'm okay with
500 feet between pharmacies, dispensaries. I mean, I could see,
But
I
not
could-
downtown.
yes, downtown, that's what we're talking about.
Pharmacies and dispensaries can be within 500 feet of downtown.
Any kind of food, like if they
So a
serve-
dispensary is like a vape shop building is something else?
no, he said we need to sharpen the definition of vape shop. And that, he says, then it will be up to us to do an inspection to confirm that you meet the definition of that, so they don't hide under something.
Okay.
Because when he was here for Community Day, he went into the new dispensary, and he says, Joe, I don't believe that meets the definition of a dispensary. That's a classier vape shop.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. That's what-
Classier than glassy vape?
Yes. Yeah, that's what he was saying.
Keep it classy.
Did you all see the billboard on the interstate?
Yeah,
No.
Yeah,
They're a big company.
yeah, they're.
Are they?
There's one on McKnight Road,
There's one down by the
there's
Meadows.
one on Meadows, yeah, they're big, they're big.
They're
on-
big.
They're classy.
And so is Black Bear, like, they have multiple, like, they have billboards on 79, they're in Grove City, Meadville, somewhere in Pittsburgh.
Ohio.
Yeah,
They're-
they have radio commercials.
Yeah, they're doing their homework, they're not gonna put someplace anything.
No, and then, I hate to keep talking, but like, in all reality, well, if we're talking about a character of a downtown and that group, like, I don't wanna sound like a snob, but you drive down Main Street today and they have a sign on the sign today that says, get your cool weed here, you know? And it's like, is that what you really want for the character of our community, you know? So you can see where we had this whole conversation.
It's funny because I just came back from Michigan,
Uh-huh.
been up there for 3 weeks, and every community has some sort of CBC cannabis store, you know, everywhere. And some of them are like, you know, keeping it classy, and some of them are you know, questioning it.
Correct. Yeah.
But, you know, that's the way the world's going right now.
You're right.
And,
It's nice to get one step ahead of it for once,
yeah,
But-
and not be reactionary.
yeah.
state law supersedes municipal law, correct?
Correct, and that's where he was getting at with
Okay.
the conditional use
Yeah.
for having this for a conditional use. So, to be a legal dispensary, there's a number of state regulations you have to meet. And he said most of the times, the towns that are put in conditional use for dispensary, essentially the same thing that you have to have for your state licenses. So he says, I don't want to set too many things by conditional use. For instance, if they get their state license, by default, they met everything you want for
Right.
conditional use, and you're gonna have a bunch of, stutterbuggers in the room that don't want that in their neighborhood.
Right.
What was it?
And, stutterbuggers, like an old lady. They're gonna have them in their neighborhood saying, I don't want that,
Cool.
So, that's why he was getting
Yeah,
at.
that's fine, yeah,
So it does make sense when you start thinking about it.
Yeah.
So it's like, gosh, what are you gonna do? But you really should have the conditional use because, just so that there is a level of scrutiny, so that we can see that, is it gonna be a dispensary, or is it the vape shop that's saying it's a
so,
dispensary?
excuse my ignorance, but does the feds have a law that supersedes state law?
I think that's the whole root of all this, is that it's still a federal offense, but the
Yeah.
states are saying,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, all right,
Yeah, marijuana, you know, Michigan, it's legal in Michigan. However, if you go onto a federal facility, go onto a wetland or a national park or
Yeah.
anything like that, they can arrest you. They'll probably ticket you rather.
Yeah.
But, I mean, federal law, it's illegal to have marijuana, so.
Yeah. And then this isn't like I'm no chemist, but they adjust something so that it doesn't meet the definition of like marijuana, you know, remember it's hemp.
And Delta 8s.
Yeah, whatever that is, you know, so they know the system. you know.
Yeah.
I have kids.
okay.
Okay,
Good.
so,
Can I just ask a question?
Sure.
So, I mean, it's sort of related.
No,
We can't do anything with that.
No,
or
we weren't
because
gonna go that far.
Yeah, okay.
that would be like a historical architectural
It
review
would be
board.
like an HOA, we don't let,
I know, I mean, to me, that would make these blend in more with the scenery.
Well,
Right,
and
yeah.
it's, you know, again, the past couple of weeks, been in a bunch of small towns that, a lot of them have, you know, there's a blank wall and there's a mural on it.
yeah.
You know, which to me, it really created a whole different vibe for
Well,
the business.
Public
industry.
Art Original's been trying to get the Salonis to do something.
It would be nice to take, like you said, the art scene here to that
Right.
level.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be
I
nice.
know it is kind of,
Very cool.
Okay, so to clarify your question about pharmacy and dispensary, we're gonna allow that in the business district
With the 500 feet
with,
condition.
with the conditions?
And then vape,
Are we,
I mean, if
I'm
we're gonna
asking,
treat it the same, I feel like pharmacies need to be able to be a
Yeah,
business, so
yeah.
that doesn't make sense not to.
Are you, wait, are, oh my God, I keep thinking I'm hearing something, then I think I.
We're on the
heard something else.
dispensaries, not the vape shops.
What?
Not the vape. The
We're talking about
dispensaries.
pharmacies.
The
pharmacies
dispensaries.
and dispensaries?
Okay,
They are one and they are the same.
okay.
So we're all in agreement?
And that McDermott will clarify.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. Good.
And then what we'll do is that, so we worked on all the details, so it's up to him to polish this to make it public worthy. If we got that all worked out, I'll keep you in the loop as we get a final or draft number 2, you know, to say, hey, before this goes on to council, speak now for the hold your peace kind of deal, you know, but I think we've met everyone's issues, you know,
Right.
worked through everything. It'd be nice to have a recommendation, and the recommendation for you guys is just to start the enactment procedure. And the way I see this laying out for the summertime and notification, is that if we make that motion tonight, at the July meeting of council would be just to authorize scheduling a public hearing, and then sending this on to Allegheny County for their comments. And Allegheny County may come back with some comments too
Right.
that get added into this, that council will address at the second draft. I'd like to set the public hearing for probably sometime in September, because that would give me a month and a half to send out letters to every single property owner. That's what we were hoping to notify, so that no one could come back and say, we didn't know, instead of me sticking one silly public notice sign under the trestle. At least will give me 45 days to have everyone know this. We'll have a public hearing in September, just so that we don't rush this for the sake of now everyone getting a letter in the mail. Then consider adoption, provided there's no pitchforks, like a conditional use hearing, or October.
Okay, okay.
And then, so that way, it gives us time, because the county has to have 45 days to review it. So I feel like if we make that motion tonight, there's still time, like you said, to get these little things worked out behind the scenes.
Okay, so you need, you were gonna say something?
Yeah, I do. I just have 2 questions about the principal uses permitted by right. I just need a little clarification.
What's that?
On-
Page 2.
Okay, page 2. On B, bed and breakfast. Airbnbs are not considered a B&B?
Airbnbs in the borough we define hotel motel. And hotel motel fits the description of a short-term stay, which is less than 30 days. Short-term hotel motels are only right now, so before this came are only allowed in the mixed-use district. So therefore, you aren't allowed to operate an Airbnb in any of the residential districts. So if you have a house in
Right.
the M district, which is massive, you know,
Right.
all fall in this, you're allowed to run an Airbnb.
Okay.
So those properties that are in that area are allowed. We have a
Okay.
couple.
Okay. All right.
So they would be permitted in this, but think about it, you only have a couple of houses
Okay.
on Main Street that it'd be nice to have.
Right. And then in S, is it saying on pet services, pet grooming? is that also considered a crematorium?
They were separate, weren't they?
Or the,
Yeah.
No, that was defined.
Yeah, those were separate.
Maybe she needs to, if she missed that, that needs to be put back in because pet crematorium is defined
Yeah.
within here. But it's also that if it's defined and permitted elsewhere and not within this chart,
Yeah.
therefore it's denied, it's not permitted because it's permitted here.
okay, all right.
So if it's not included here, it's not permitted.
Okay,
Because, we could sit here all day naming occupations and say, oh, we don't have that. So if it's not here, and if it's listed somewhere else, it fits to that.
okay,
If it's not here and not there, and then we have a catch-all that says, use similar to,
Yeah.
it defaults to industry.
okay.
And I don't think I know the answer to this, but obviously, if you, like I said, we could name here all day long, naming stuff, hey, we can put that in there. 5 years down the road, some new business that we've never
Right.
heard of,
Never even envisioned.
Envision comes here and says, hey, we're gonna come to your town, oh, we're not here, you know, they could go and
Seek a variance.
seek variance.
Or if we knew ahead of time and we go, oh my God, this is great for the
Yeah.
local economy or community, we could make a zoning amendment.
Okay.
Okay.
Because we're gonna have to evolve, even though things are gonna change.
Exactly.
Yep. Look how much the world has changed in the last zoning update, which wasn't even long ago. to
Absolutely.
this. Yes.
That other question, last meeting we talked about height requirements.
Yes, oh, that was on
We talked about what?
height requirements.
Yeah, with the
Yes.
tall drag.
And the consensus was, our ladder truck reaches 100 foot, confirm that with me, what I thought, and then get back to you. And then she called me up and says, hey, what's your thoughts on this? I said, well, the group is going 100 feet versus 110. Our ladder truck does go 100 and 100 with it, so that's what it's written.
So, does that, I think the more important thing is, does it make sense to make that conditional use that height?
I think so.
Okay, that's fine.
It seemed appropriate to me.
All right.
I understood how the character of the district is like an older town and like 4 or 5 stories, but we have the 100 floor, I feel like it's already there.
Okay, that's fine, that was my question, because you weren't
Your
here.
argument was spot on, I followed it, and it does match what our ladder truck is. so.
Okay.
And she wrote it like,
So you need a recommendation contingent on, Tom reviewing.
yes, so you see it's a 1B, I'm just writing contingent upon the solicitor's, improvement of those couple recommendations we had.
Okay.
Needs to make a motion.
Yeah.
Yeah, then I'll make a motion, we have to make a motion.
Okay, Mike, in a motion?
Second.
Second? Okay. Any further discussion?
This was a long process. And,
Yeah.
we did good, and I appreciate everyone's help, and this was a lot of longer days than we usually put in, and thank you.
I think it's, before you brought it up, I think it's very important. I mean, we've always talked about this because of what's going on, the potential that's going on here. But now you have that's a cornerstone business that's right in our town. And who knows what's gonna go in there. And this is a very important to get enacted.
Yeah.
So you don't get up, I don't know, who knows?
Because that's the most valuable corner in the borough. It's
Absolutely.
valuable real estate, that's
And
it.
expansion of brothel next door would be a good,
That'd be
for
nice.
instance, is
Does that
something
fit
we
in?
wouldn't mind
Hey,
having.
whatever, hey, teach us something.
Okay. Get a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Comprehensive plan, project updates, sustainability initiatives, Baldwin Street Pollinator Garden, update.
And they're planted.
There are plants.
So, there was an article about the middle school kids.
Yeah.
And it kind of, it made it seem like it was their project. And the article made it seem like it was their idea of the project, it was.
Yeah, it's like, they did a couple articles on
That
it.
was kind of the vibe of the whole, that was the vibe the whole way.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
All right, good. All right, cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's okay, like, it's fine.
I didn't see
They,
it.
I didn't read it either.
Yeah.
Do we have a good show up for the second planting?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and we had much less glamorous work, because we had a smaller number of plants to plant that day. So we had a lot of people driving home cardboard and wood chipping and, you know.
Okay.
So I do have a question.
Well, it's fine.
When the fire siren goes off on a rainy day, what does that mean? Is
Our
there
farm
some-
fire don't go off, you're hearing another
You're
computer.
hearing fair.
Okay, because I was up at, it rained like crazy one night. And at 5 in the morning, I heard the siren go off and I went, uh-oh. I'm thinking, it's Baldwin Street's flooded. I went down to see the damage to the garden and nothing was going on. So I was happy. But, because that's a lot of work that was put into there.
Correct.
So,
What about the mural?
They're here, they're downstairs.
Okay.
We've been kind of behind with public works activities, but we're hoping after the 4th of July, we'll have them in. So I'm hoping, give me a week and a half.
and
I'm not rushing, I just.
No, I owe it to you guys, yeah.
Yeah, and then we were gonna do, we're gonna do a pad for the bench that's being donated. So
the
there's,
mural's going up, the bench is
Yeah,
going
bench
in. It's, oh, the fence?
We need to-
Talk about the fence?
yeah,
That's part of the
Right, right.
split mill fence.
Yeah. But that's about it. Did you talk about the financial aspect of it?
I did not, no.
Several people have come to me and said that they had heard that the project of Baldwin Street Pollinator Garden cost $9,000. And I heard it from several different people. And I was like, you know, honestly,
It's a lot of money.
I don't see where we got $9,000 invested in that.
Where'd that number come from?
And I didn't know, but I heard it twice in one day.
Okay.
Anyway, so.
The only number we ever had was, what was the,
So I mean, we,
I thought it was 900.
Right, we had 900 for the
But we had-
flowers.
And we
for the
had a-
seeds.
A little bit, I mean, I know we ended up having to buy some dirt
Yeah.
because
It was
the
pennies.
donation didn't.
Yeah.
And the water,
Uh-huh,
you know, the plumbing for the water.
yeah.
But do you think it would be a good idea to do like an analysis afterwards? A project like this is accomplished so that we can say, okay, here's what was donated
Uh-huh.
by certain people, the murals, the mulch
Oh,
from
yeah.
wood waste, the donuts from Pat de Blasio, you know, we bought donuts, that sort of thing. So,
Yeah, we do an expense report, we have to.
yeah,
Why don't we do this, is that, I know that the most expensive thing from the borough
Yeah.
was the water line.
Right.
Like, that was expensive, I think we probably had like $1,800 to $2,500 to do the water
Okay.
line. There was a lot. And
that's
that-
labor and parts.
No, that's
Oh.
just the parts, and we had to have Gene Calavo come
Okay.
down to help us do the
Okay.
connection.
All right,
So I had to pay a plumber, and that's
Okay.
where the money was the plumber.
okay.
And I remember we did put, when we recommended to Borough Council this project, we did outline a budget. I remember you had a very nice,
We
like,
didn't
breakdown.
have- But that was for the plants.
Plans, and that was really the only numbers that ever came around. So whoever came up with 9,000, it didn't come from the
No.
borough building. you know?
Right, right.
So, but let's, we'll put a spreadsheet together, and if you
Okay.
could help me,
Yeah. yeah.
put together your numbers, and I'll put together what I have, and then we'll regroup, and then we'll come back.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah, that'd be nice. I'm just telling you, the only thing to be cautious from us is the only number is gonna be that's high, is gonna be that plumbing number.
Right,
I
right,
kind of expect it.
right. Okay. All right.
And we even saved money on that, where this is one of those little like cup of sugar where we just help people out, where we made a friend at the water company, and we moved the curb stop into the garden. They ended up paying to have the sidewalk restored, so we didn't have to pay for the sidewalk. So just working things out with the water guy behind the scenes, got a free sidewalk that we were gonna have to pay for if we didn't do this.
Okay.
Because we dug it out.
Yeah.
They did, they paid for it. So little things like that go a far way.
Okay.
9,000, there's no way we're close to that. We may be close to 4, if knowing that the connection was 2, we may be close to 4.
Right.
Yeah. It's like a capital outlay. The capital outlay was that water connection.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And that's not gonna be bad because if you remember when we kicked around the idea of moving it across the street,
Right.
at least that water connection can be used to accommodate anything you do across the street, like that goes. So, this is money well spent.
Okay, all right.
Yep. So I'll work on that and I'll get something that
Okay,
can
and
help me.
we'll put down everything that I can remember you can.
Well, we just Venmoed money back and forth, so we can just look at
9,000
Venmo.
times.
Yeah.
All right, great.
Okay.
Because the single item guy did run an article when it was approved by council with the dollar amounts. You remember that?
That was the 900.
Yeah,
I don't know
that's
if
the
somebody
900.
saw that and
Gary.
our brain saw an extra zero at the end.
Seems logical with that
Yeah.
explanation. That's the only place the numbers were ever kicked around.
Okay.
I totally believe, in my mantra for years, people are goofy. They just are.
Okay. Moving on here. Garden Club Environmental Advisory Discussion. Council discussion.
How nicely Justine's comments flowed right into this whole topic. So this was added to the agenda because we have had feedback from the community that the work we're doing on these projects like Earth Day and this garden are not planning commission work. So Joe stopped out the lot one day when we were down there and we just were talking about, there's been a suggestion that we create a garden club, but this really seems like we're doing work on borough lot. So we were talking about how would you set up something like that? So Joe found that there is actually an environmental advisory council in the current code. It appears to have nobody on it.
No, it was used in the early 90s, and
What?
I don't know the history beyond some recycle cans. I really don't.
Okay.
I know when they established recycling within the borough, and the first round that everyone got a recycle can, it was done through this environmental advisory council. Because my neighbor still has the original recycle can, and it has the name on it. It's the only reason I know.
Okay, your neighbor clearly does not recycle then.
The person before her clearly didn't recycle.
Okay, yeah, fair. There's no way that can would have survived
Yeah, since
30 years,
1991.
yeah. 35 years.
Yeah. 1990.
So what do we need to do? I mean, we need to flesh this out, or?
Well, I guess we need to talk about, is it important in some way that planning has kind of taken on, adopted running these projects? Is it impactful? Like, when I read through this, it does look like a lot of the stuff that we're doing would fall in this area.
Sure.
Is there a way we can ease the public's mind that this does exist and we've adopted doing this work to avoid having 5 more people appointed to another commission?
It could be where, if you remember when we were talking about creating the Shade Tree Commission, we were concerned that we weren't going to get community volunteers. So the solicitor recommended, why don't we see if the planning commission members would be interested, and we just make you guys dual roles, where the planning commission, the Shade Tree Commission, even though they're 2 legally different entities, but the same people, same board. So I don't see why we couldn't go back to them saying, hey, we have a desire to reestablish the Environmental Advisory Council, and we're requesting that all the members of the Planning Commission be the members of this. And if you think about it, like there's some organizations, like I know the fire department, you have the fire department, then you have the Fire Department Relief Association. And sometimes they adjourn one meeting, and then the next meeting starts And it's this,
And everybody stays.
everyone just stays.
Yeah.
So we could have it as needed or quarterly environmental
Well,
advisory.
I think that's a good idea, and if we do it quarterly, I think that's okay. Because my only concern, the only thing that I could think that would be a negative is if we as members of planning focus a portion of our meeting, of our intended planning responsibilities to gardening.
I agree with
Right.
that.
Because we're gonna have a shade tree commission now.
Correct.
And we've had several people step up for that council's gonna be appointing people at our next meeting. So you don't wanna have the two clutton heads, so it's gonna take some type of finesse. So
Right.
maybe over the next month, if we could think of, let's spell this out. So
Yeah,
when we
yeah.
make a recommendation to Borough Council, it could be a letter that says, all right, we're asking for the 5 members of the planning commission to be members here. We are actively doing these projects, like you said, we want to continue this, but continue it under this group here. We're gonna do it, as it says, as a recommendation body onto you, so that it's really not the planning commission, but the council, the advisory council doing that. We do not plan to make this a standing meeting
Right.
item, but it would be on their own meeting. We hope to meet quarterly or as needed, and then go from there. And then if they say, yeah, then we'll reestablish you guys or whoever they appoint as that for.
I mean, hey, we're already having 2-hour meetings, so.
Well, the issue I have with the Environmental Advisory Committee is you hear the word environmental, and it means something different to Mike than it means to me, and probably to you.
Some people take it as bureaucratic red tape,
I guess, like garden club does not sound like environmental.
Oh, gosh, oh goodness.
Well, and that's,
I know, that's what I'm saying.
that's where I was kind of headed with this, is I think about environmental stuff, and I'm thinking about stormwater permitting and
Which is definitely stuff that we work on.
As cleaning.
Right.
Yeah.
recycling, chemical maintenance and that type of thing,
Yeah.
hazardous waste issues and that type of thing. So I guess I'm looking for some better definition of what the environmental advisory committee is. It was created back in the 90s. The world's changed a lot since the 90s, and that was, 30 years ago?
10
10 years.
10 years ago.
Years ago, in the 90s.
That's my only concern is I don't want people to get confused by, they see the word environmental.
And then why did it phase away? It fizzled out. Like, was it just so that you started recycling and they felt like, hey, our mission's complete,
Well, how about,
It's interesting, residential recycling, but not, like, we don't have recycling at the parks and stuff,
Correct, yeah.
Like, it's so targeted to residential.
So that's my issue, and I'm open to discussion, but it's just one of those things that
We need to be methodical, don't just shoot from the hip and say, yeah.
right,
I get it. It is nice, like, I see both sides. Like, I do like garden club because, like, who could be against a garden club?
Yeah, when I think of a garden club, I think, hey, the end game would to be having a community garden, somewhere in town. When I think of garden club.
Like, I think of garden club, I think of like Hopewell, they have like roadside flower garden.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
the women's club,
well, and to kind of go back to, does the garden club be closer fit with the shade tree, or does it fit with the environmental?
So here's my question about that. If we're developing Bridgeville properties, is a garden club going to, because I think we had council approved $900 for plants for that like, what do you think the expenses are gonna be here?
For what?
With that garden club, like, if we decide to do a phase 2 on that lot and put some other, like, finish it out, to, like, really have it looking like a little parklet, there will be expenses. Would we be asking that garden club to put that budget together and submit it to council? Like, how would that all flow?
I don't see that as in any way involved with quote-unquote environmental. To me, environmental is really serious shit, like cleaning up the Love Canal. You know, really,
Yeah, but-
really serious stuff. Environmental does not mean that you have this pretty environment that you live in with pretty trees, to me. Now, maybe again, it's because I came through the college ranks right when the environment was going, the environmental movement was just bursting with, you know, Love Canal and all kinds of shit like that, just literal shit. And I don't see environmental being a very good definition of planting trees, planting flowers. To me, it's a much more serious and robust and muscular issue.
Yeah, exactly. We all kind of means different to everybody. I think of like, that's what I think of environmental.
Yeah, I mean, there's language in this
And that doesn't mean a negative, I'm not.
No,
it's not-
yeah,
No,
yeah.
It's just
right.
a different
I,
thing.
yeah, I mean, I feel like the language that's in here is more on the lighter side. I'm not saying it should be that way. I'm just saying that, like, it referenced keeping an inventory of open spaces and how development was happening with them.
Can this be redone? This ordinance?
I don't see why not.
How about if we,
We need to see if there's interest to reestablish it.
right,
But
Well-
maybe if we give a recommendation of what should be, you know, and then do it.
Well, I'm just thinking, you know, to try and get the garden club aspect, the more plant-friendly, fluffier type thing, together.
And but think like you're pass the ball to the other team. The other team just established a shade tree commission that we really haven't even had a meeting and appointed to. And now we're gonna say, all right, let's create this new other committee, you know.
Well, and that's
Yeah,
why,
timing may not
that's
be
why,
right.
Oh, it's slow here, let's pump the brakes here.
well, and that's why I'm suggesting we think about this and think about how, this needs to evolve.
Yeah. What was the conversation though, like running for shade tree? Like, I just know we won't be at the table, you know? Maybe we'll be, because like, these meetings are like, anyone walks in the door as a planning commission member, you know? So I could see them being, anyone walks in the door as a shade tree
Right.
commissioner, that's how it's gonna be. You know, that's Bridgewood, you know?
That is pretty cool.
So, I don't know. We should do something, because we're now taking it to the next level, you're spot on. Because I think last year we did rain barrel workshop, we do all these HHW events, which we pick up our rain now.
you know, what I thought was interesting at the last council meeting, when we were given the MS4 or
Mhm.
whatever it is. And there were two things that stuck with me. Number one is that, the communities are going to be charged or evaluated based upon their output, their solar outputs. All right? And that permeable and impermeable surfaces are important in this. And it's like, okay, so here's two things that I'm thinking about. Number one is, if we can eliminate through rain gardens, all right, which I think falls into that environmental aspect, all right, if we can avoid water output and put it back into the ground, and would it be a savings benefit for the municipality at some point? I mean, eventually, I think it's gonna head that way anyway, so.
Yes, and that's what John was alluding to.
Correct,
Yes.
right. So, you know, now's a good time, in my opinion, is to start thinking about that stuff. And if we can start looking at rain gardens and trying to decide sort of where the rain garden can go, and, you know, maybe go and get some, grant money, you know, we can start working on that.
And I think you're, I mean, I think you're right, Joe. I get, for me, I look at it as more broad. I mean, it would be having somebody help you coordinate the workshops and the hazardous waste events, and
Yeah.
we are doing a lot of things.
Uh-huh.
They're just not really kind of housed anywhere at the moment.
Maybe it's just learn a little bit more, because there are some communities that still have these councils in place, and we used to work on work,
Mhm.
and then come back.
I mean, I'm not opposed to this, I just, it was just one of those things I just started thinking about, and, you know, my perspective from my professional history just put a whole different spin on this.
And I'll ask, I think the borough engineer would be first person I talked to, because I know when he can't attend visual meetings, he's at Fox Chapel's Environmental Advisory Council meetings. So he's going to those meetings, so,
Mhm.
what do you do?
Yeah, exactly. That's the first thing I would do is like, hey, what's someone else doing?
Yeah.
So whenever we wanted to start Shade Tree Commission, we've got examples of other, you know, commissions.
When I look at this, first, council created purposes and general powers on matters dealing with protection, conservation, management, promotion and use of natural resources, including air, land, and water resources. To me, that's big time important, big world stuff. It's not, and again, please be sure that we're all understanding that the kind of thing we did with the Melissa's idea of the butterfly garden and stuff, that's all awesome. And it's not that one has to be more important or more anything than the other, but they are, in my worldview, and again, this could just be because of the time that I grew up, they are very different. And they have to be, I think that the borough needs to market them differently. And an environmental advisory council is a little bit more like what I would say has some heft or some, not some heft, just some building block kind of stuff. That, you know, that we need to do things this way, and we need to worry about our water, and we need to worry about our environment, we need to worry about our trees. We need to plant more trees. That was all fun and games with everybody that did it, but at the end of the day, that was a really important thing to do. Ultimately, long-term, for the community, for the environment. You know, and I think we have to look at that. What's the outcome for this? What are we trying to accomplish? And what we're trying to accomplish is to not make it prettier in the park, but to make the park better for catching runoff, to do, you know, the serious stuff that's called environmental. We should maybe get a little more serious about how we market it and how we.
And I agree, and I will say that, because I think we've all been involved in these lots down on Baldwin Street, you know, and looking at it, we had to start somewhere, you know? And I think for me, I think it was better to take baby steps to get everybody acclimated to exactly what we're doing.
It's the Shade Tree experiment. Look, we started out with a couple of community projects, and then that sold the creation of Shade Tree.
Right. So I'm not down, I mean, you know, in reading this, I understand where you're coming from, because I truly do believe in a lot of this, all right? We just have to learn how to go from this baby step into a newer step that's going to be a little more meatier, heftier, so.
I'll find out what some other councils do,
Right.
report back to you, and then we can go from there.
Yeah,
Sound good?
yeah, that sounds like a good plan. Thank you.
I like this next one. I don't know.
North End.
Grass tonight. I said, I want to cut grass tonight. Because she's talking about it.
North End Washington Avenue, update from the borough manager and discussion.
All right, so we had some good traction on the north end, just planning level, but not like anything too involved. But it's probably the first serious step forward in the planning for probably a decade. So we submitted that proposal to SPC and PennDOT. PennDOT had their traffic engineers do a full depth review of the concept plans for the widening of the north end. And they came back with like a 6-page, 5-page letter that had their general comments and questions and notes from the north end review. And essentially some of it was like, if you don't do the railroad trestle, all you're gonna do is kick the bottleneck down. But then it came into that, hey, your Sirius Q is only into Bridgeville. For you, why don't you consider doing the Presley Road, you know, the one side and don't widen the other side? He really gave it thought that, I need to think of it that way. And then some really got into details that where's the traffic analysis to back up the need to have dedicated turning lanes at the bottom of the press. So I kind of feel like after you read this, knowing that I'm going to be working on the borough budget in 2 months, we start it in August, so really 2025 is here, or 2026 is here. So knowing that we had a budget for planning consultant work this year and we used it for the downtown zoning project, I think it's be advantageous to keep this momentum going at the planning level, because this really this is that planning level. Like,
Right.
we're still up in the
We're
air.
still 30,000 feet.
Correct, and to get it down to 20,000 feet, in all reality, this PennDOT official helped us outright the RFP for the planning consultant to do the traffic analysis, to redefine the constructability of this project. So I think it would be nice, what I'd like to see is us incorporate a request for council for 2026, that a budget be done, that we allocate $10,000 to $15,000 to do a traffic study and to sharpen this plan. Because then if they can come back and answer this stuff here, then we can take the ball from. Because talking to PennDOT, they go, we have more bridges and roads that need fixed
Right.
than what we can afford to go add new ones, you know? So we really need to have our ducks in a row before we start even talking to people about money.
Would PennDOT be responsible for doing the railroad trestle, or would that be the railroad?
It would be up to us. The railroad isn't going to do it. They kind of, in the food chain, they're at the top. So
Yeah.
the state can't tell them that it's tricked up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it would be the borough's responsibility to widen the railroad trestle.
If we wanted to do it, yes.
Okay, all right.
Well, and reading through the letter, the question I had, suggested doing grants or that type of thing. But if you get a grant and the time limit runs out, I mean, most grants have a window. If you can't get it done within that window, you lose that grant money. So,
We're not going to get grant money at this level. We need to sharpen it and
Right.
have a real, like, engineered, that backed up with the traffic data to show the need. And because what we had really was a traffic engineer who says, I think this would work. We didn't have traffic data.
you just draw it out on a napkin and said.
No, but
No, I
you
know,
follow me.
but-
The
yeah.
concept.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
Right.
But this was really good information
Yeah,
that
I
I didn't even
think-
think of.
Yeah,
Okay, so you need a motion, recommending to council that,
Yeah,
for
I-
next year's budget put in consulting dollars for, traffic study for the north end?
Yeah, I think so. I think what we can do is like, every time, just to background to the rest of the planning commission, is like, you see, when we make recommendations to council, we have a letter that goes from planning commission to the council. In the letter, we can explain that, hey, we've forwarded the Route 50 task force design of the north end plan to PennDOT. PennDOT came back with a series of questions and, hey, do you really need this kind of hypotheticals? And this the answers that PennDOT is looking for can't be facilitated unless we invest in a next level of traffic engineering, similar to what we did for the roundabout. So it's essentially the same exact thing. So I think this year we did the roundabout and the downtown. It's really that, okay, to keep this thing, really put the train on the track and get it moving, we have to do that. Otherwise, we're just talking.
Right,
So-
And no one's gonna do it for free. You know?
right, right.
Because we saw that what for free gets you, it looks great, but
Right, right, yeah.
it don't match
Yeah,
Yeah,
constructability.
right.
Was there any other thoughts from this? I was actually,
no,
I appreciated this.
I find that it is very thorough.
Yes.
And it did have things in here that, like you said, I didn't even think of, you know, there was just a lot more. It was very in-depth.
Yeah,
I did like the fact about maybe thinking about a roundabout
At Barn Hill. It does make sense. Yeah,
so there we go.
yeah.
okay. So, a motion to,
I'll recommend the Borough Council.
recommend to Borough Council that we have, that they provide some funding for consultation for North End traffic
Traffic engineering.
engineering.
Yep.
Okay, I have a second,
I'll make a motion. I'll second.
okay, any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
And then it's nice is that you think about it, you have a concept plan, and then you already have the PennDOT, hey, I reviewed it, these are what you need to do. So it's like, when you put out an RFP, hey, take this, and there it is. This is 1 + 1 = 2, and we want the 2.
When you do the RFP for this traffic stuff,
Uh-huh.
would you look at also too, because I noticed in here that they talked about the widening of the bridge over Chartiers. All right, so they would start their study at Chartiers Bridge, at the bridge there, North End Bridge?
I think we set the limits, and then that's something we'll come back to you on, because I know that's controversial.
Okay.
Because like, is it really to Mount Lebanon, or is it really to there, or is it to here?
Right,
You know, so it's
Right.
like, because they come back and said, really, you should only just go to Presley Road is what you first read this. you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah,
So it makes you really wonder, and you're not gonna know that until you do traffic counts.
okay,
right.
all right.
So it really is good, because you think about it, like, okay, why invest in that? Because it is gonna be extremely expensive, the utilities are insane down here. It's
Yeah.
like-
Yeah, why, I mean, what's the deal, there's a lot of buried utilities along there?
I see more like spaghetti in the sky down here.
Right.
than-
But there was a comment about like the underground utilities at the south end
Mhm.
being not predicted, and
Yeah,
so,
it's an old town, who knows?
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
All right, but I was happy we're making traction. And then maybe over the next couple months, we keep the movement going where, what other public improvements do we want to see incorporated in that larger plan? We already came out of the downtown, after that happened in the meeting at the library, the need is for a public parking lot somewhere in that area. And if we're gonna be doing right-of-way taking, incorporate a public parking lot down there. So like, this is kind of the discussion items.
Sure.
And if you look about it, the one property that did show in that 2015 plan was that, I'm pretty sure, is if you're at the red light, the apartment building on the right that puts like Darth Vader up in the window, that building was to be taken for the right of way taken. So if you did take that building, the lot to the right of that, it's like a triangle
Yeah.
up to the railroad trestle, maybe you could incorporate like a small public parking area in there, you know, so you don't wanna come out and say, you know what, your home's going, but like, how do you come
Yeah.
out to say, you know what, this may be a good concept area to look at?
Sure.
So, there is a lot of play there, like, we gotta take off, it's hard for me to take off the blinders of, okay, today, I'm gonna
Right.
think of tomorrow, because that was the issue with the library, everyone goes, they don't need it. We're saying, no, we're talking about a future development in the north end happen. You need this. It isn't for shoots today. This is for the
15 years, 20
Yeah.
years, 30 years down
yeah,
the
and
road.
it was hard to get that message across.
Yeah, well, and it's hard for people to visualize something like that when,
Yeah.
you see what it is today, and this is what people expected. It's gonna be like that 10 years from now, because you look around the community, change comes slow.
Yeah, and maybe like, the change comes slow, but like, time may be our side here to make sure it's done right, that if we got PennDOT looking at this, we've already shared it with SBC, and I was shocked that Rich Fitzgerald himself called, and, maybe we just get them involved, and they have planners, and say, give me your analysis of this, and let's start getting all those people, because like, if we get those people, those are the people that are gonna make the decision if this gets funded or not.
Right.
So maybe like, we don't mind, I'm gonna reach back to the SPC saying, hey, PennDOT gave us this, can I get your input from your planners? Because I want them to just keep Bridgeville on their mind.
Sure.
Because if we're not talking to them, we're not gonna
If you talk to Daniel Line now,
be, no.
because he's with SBC now,
Yeah, I only just talked to Rich.
and he's good friends with Rich, but and Dan's he knows our plight and everything, and he'd be the one to reach out to,
All right, that's what we'll do.
you know.
Okay, moving on. Number 3, active transportation plan. Chartier Street reduction / PennDOT did not approve the request to lower the 25 mile an hour, but continues to study the feasibility of an alternative pedestrian access to the park across, into the park crossing at Winfield Street.
Yeah, there was, talking to a design engineer that PennDOT hired in a sub-consultant that's doing the design of the slope work. I talked to him, it was like a month and a half ago, just to follow up when I got the letter. There was that, there's a retaining wall that's gonna be built there at Winfield, and they wanted to make sure that geotechnically, that the steps, it's a set of steps, could be constructed with that wall. So he goes, I got a design, I shared it with PennDOT, I'm waiting to hear back from PennDOT. So the sub-consultant drew something up, didn't share it with me, but drew something up and shared it with PennDOT.
Does
And I can follow up.
does that crossing / access need to be ADA?
I don't know, because if you think about it, like we just did a set of steps,
Not a ton of money for that.
I don't understand.
Okay.
It is great to me because like, if you go ADA alone, how do you get public money to build a set of steps?
Well, it wouldn't be a steps, it'd have to be a ramp.
Yeah.
Type setup.
And worst case, like you could do accessible route with arrows or something, the cost, I don't know, I'm shooting for this. I don't know.
Sorry.
Yeah, but that was just so one, that they denied our request that we've made as a body to them, and now it's just a matter of, hey, we're still looking at
Okay.
crossing, at least they didn't say, oh, no, they actually thought it had merit.
And what were their reasons for not lowering the speed limit, or did they not give us reasons?
I don't believe they gave us reasons.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
it's the state.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Moving on. Bank Street, Chartiers, Lesnet, Mayview Roundabout update from the borough manager.
This was reassuring. So, a couple weeks ago, there was, when they came back and said that the roundabout wasn't constructible because of the cost that we all right of way taken, it kind of like scared us away, remember? So we said, well, come up with alternatives for ways to improve that intersection. Is it just a traffic signal, is it realignment? Mr. Fulmar had a really excellent idea with realigning it like a poor man's way, with just switching the bus stop, so it all made sense. So I went to Upper St. Clair with that feedback and said, hey, would you be interested in just going back to our traffic engineer we could retain to give us a proposal on doing this ancillary work? They came back and they said, you know what? This is their because I've been the manager, I've worked with the township about 30 years. He goes, we've been talking about this 30 years. He goes, I don't want to kick this on to the next guy. We got to do it and do it right. Okay. He goes, instead of we just throw money to them, let's meet with PennDOT and see how interested they are in the alternatives. If they're interested in the alternatives, then we'll consider doing it. Otherwise, we're just wasting money. So, a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago now, we met with PennDOT, the two towns, to say, hey, this is what we did the study, you knew we were doing it, this is what the outcomes were. It will require some right of way taken, probably the business and the one house on the Bridgeville side, to make this work. It's big. It looks like there's a lot of area there, but when you get a roundabout that needs 100 or 130 foot circumference to accommodate 53-foot tractor trailers, it limits the area of constructability without taking. So we met with the district executive, so the number one guy for this area, their traffic engineer, the trans associate, the traffic consultants, and then the two towns. The district engineer wasn't afraid of the cost. He goes, before we even told him we wanted to keep kicking the can, he knew of the issue. He said PennDOT applied a couple years back for SPC, that's the regional planning funding for it, but didn't get funded. He goes, but it always just stayed on their radar. He goes, give me an estimate of what it would cost with right-of-way taking, and then I want to bounce it around here. And he goes, maybe this is something that we usually apply to the Federal Department of Transportation with serious projects every couple of years. And he goes, I want to know what this is. He goes, I don't want to go to the alternatives. I think the roundabout is the way to go here yet. So before you guys start just jumping to the next thing, let me flush this out at the bigger picture. So I walked away from that meeting surprised, because you knew that usually every conversation was, we're broke, we don't have any money, so they're still broke, they don't have any money, but at least they didn't send me home, So it was good, so that's where we were with that. So at least the roundabout isn't dead in the water, it's just floating there.
Okay. Anybody have any additional questions or anything regarding that?
So, I guess I'll say mine for the next letter.
I've got one other thing I want to ask about, the McLaughlin Run Meadow project. Where are we at with that?
I'm hoping to have that done early July. So when we start putting in the murals for over here, we're going to do the benches and the signs at the meadow. We did the first cut of the walking path last week, so the path is cut out. I reached out to the lady at DCNR that handles the meadows, and why don't I see any flowers yet, And she says they won't come till end of summer, first year is what she told me. So at least
Late season, so.
yes, that's what she says. So the path's in, and that all the signs are here, the benches are here, that after 4th of July, when we do the garden lot concrete work, we guys do concrete work there. So my goal was to get, even the big picture was, I had 2.5, 3 months worth of concrete work doing catch basins on half a dozen paving streets. Now that's all done. Now those, like my two guys that do concrete are going to do that after the 4th of July. One's on vacation next week. That's what it was.
That wasn't,
Yeah, but so my hope is that when we come back in our July meeting, it's constructed and we can organize some type of finish.
Okay, sweet.
Did you have a chance to look at that? I think I sent to you the Penn State Master Gardener project plan in regards to taking care of a meadow.
You did, but I'll be honest, I didn't read it.
Okay, that's okay.
If you give me guidance and like marching orders, I will do it.
Okay, because here's me, silly me, thinking, oh, all these flowers. Little do you know that the Japanese knotweed's right there, and the other poisonous plants are right there, and you do have to take care of weeding a meadow.
Yeah, there is some poison hemlock growing in
Yes.
that field, Joe.
So,
Yeah, there's some work we got to do, because essentially we let them plant it and
Yes,
we just
yeah.
walked away.
I mean, the poison hemlock was growing down there before that.
Right.
It
So
was
it's
along
just
the
still-
sides.
Yeah, but there is some coming up in the middle of the meadow too.
okay,
I don't know if it's kill anybody,
the
but
plant people.
the plant, yeah, the plant.
and new business. Upper St. Clair Township Draft 2025 Comprehensive Plan. Joe asked for, comments.
So one goes right back to what we were just talking about, like in their section for the transportation. If they are serious about doing something with that intersection, have them add it to their comprehensive plan.
Yes, yeah, good, that's good.
Because if, just like we know, like, when you put something in the comprehensive plan, it holds your feet to the fire, and it makes it very hard to tell their commissioners or our councilmen, hey, this, you voted for the comprehensive plan.
Yeah,
You
excellent.
know, so there's that, and the only other one I have is, when they talk about their non-motorized connectivity, they have a really nice map, and it shows all these really cool trails, and there's a arrow that goes to Fairview Park, there's an arrow that says connectivity, to Charters Park, which is really cool. But in their one paragraph on page 37, it says finally, regional non-motorized connectivity should be considered through addition to the trail system, feasibility of connecting Boyce, Mayview Park, and Fairview Park, and neighboring South Fayette Township should be explored. That's the little sentence saying Anchorage or Charters Park.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Do you know
Because
that,
they've been talking about this.
Yeah, I would
did
just,
that
Well,
lot
they're
sell?
yeah.
What's that?
Did that lot sell in between?
I don't believe so.
Okay, I mean, so there's still private property, it's
Right,
very.
I mean, if it's, they're not talking about buying a big lot, or talking about,
It's
it's
an
a trail.
easement.
Yeah.
Putting an easement across the
Right.
front.
People who use that, people, there's already a trail there that need to be used.
Joe, I went all the way through it, and I gotta say, it was like the apples to apples is where in here. I mean, were we talking about maybe something that they are doing, we could do, or?
No, as a part of the requirements to adopt a comprehensive plan, you have to alert all your neighboring municipalities that you're doing this, to essentially identify issues like Mike suggested. We did that when we did our comp plan, and none of our neighbors even commented. To be honest with you, most people say, don't even read it, what's nice about this board, we've been actually speaking up to our neighbors, and, they've all been,
South Fayette.
they all addressed everything and came to the table. So this is that opportunity. So the two things Mike suggested were spot on.
Yeah.
I didn't think of that, and that's great.
The other thing my comment was is regarding the regional trails is, it'd be nice to support that connectivity, working with the neighbors to create that connectivity with the regional trail. So access from the Chartiers Park to Montour Trail, and I mean, even if they look at creating a bike lane along, what is it? Mayview. Or, no, what comes into Lesnet and Chartiers, is that Mayview? Yeah, creating a bike lane along there.
They talk about bike lanes in their plan.
I mean, my comment about the connect is also our connectivity. But I feel like it would be nice if we could explore putting some crosswalks on Lesnet, because people do walk the neighborhoods, like people from Upper St. Clair come over here to walk, 'cause it's flat. I mean, they do, yeah, and they've got sidewalks, right, so they like walking over here. So I feel like that would be a nice safety addition.
Do you think that they were pretty benign in what they had to say about flood mitigation?
That's my next
Yeah.
comment. That, I didn't want to, but we should make a comment regarding their, supporting their addressing stormwater management using best management practices. And possibly acquiring some property along the Glockman Run to be retention areas.
Yeah, because like, I know we had this conversation with them, it's always been like that.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a couple of low areas. I mean, they spent a lot of time talking about stormwater management, north of 19 and, you know, then back along where all the recreation is and that type of thing. And they've got some low areas between where McMillan and Lesnet meet coming downstream that could very easily be made into more
Yes, I get you.
retention.
Weren't they supposed to do weren't they supposed to do something by, Morrow Road? When that woman died in 2018?
I only saw plans that, like, there's been talks about sanitary sewer tanks along McLaughlin to hold some of the excess flow during the weekend filtration tanks. But I haven't seen anything about storm. We had discussions about storm facilities up there. It was like option 4 of the flood plan.
Right.
We call them shades of death.
But
Literally death.
I'll draft something and I'll kick it around these guys before we send it off, and we help them polish it and get it out there, you know, before they're dead. I think it's, I don't think it's coming up.
It's coming up pretty quick.
Yeah, because I got this on May 23rd. Yeah, so we'll get it this week.
Okay, any other comments for Joe regarding the Upper St. Clair comprehensive plan? Okay, any public comments? Okay.
Can I ask about, I guess this is technically old business, but the pump outs. You had asked us about some
Plant?
planting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, based on a bit of research for that, there's a decent amount of square footage. The ones up at Wingfield are kind of, they're big.
They're big.
That's probably, would run if we bought plants, like about $1,000 maybe. So I don't know if that's feasible, if it's not feasible. I feel like we might be able to leverage our volunteer group to like grow some stuff and plant in the fall. I don't know how
I
you.
think that's fair, because we're going in the heat of summer.
Yeah.
Who wants to plant them?
Well,
So maybe we could buy
trying to
some-
take care of it in the heat of summer, you know. You
Yeah,
better.
like, you're gonna plant perennials too, or plant fall.
Yeah. So do you want us to
Let's
explore
put a plan
like?
together for the fall.
Okay.
It's already 4th of July.
You had something to say about bump outs, the beginning conversation before the meeting started?
I think they're awesome.
You want to add, embellish that at all?
Well, I think they're doing the job that they're intended to do.
I'm so surprised sometimes when I hear from the honest people that say these things are great.
I've heard, well, Guy heard actually. I heard once and he heard multiple times. You guys complaining about, oh my God, I came down there and I had to do this, and I did this. Like, dude, it's freaking wide open and you can see from here to there, you know, I think you can figure this out, really, truthfully. It's just people don't like things that are new and different.
Who,
But I think-
anonymous participant?
Huh?
Anonymous participant?
I mean, to be fair, trucks can't make that right turn off of Winfield without going into the opposite lane.
But you can't make any turn off of any of the streets on the Chartier
That's-
Street
yeah,
without,
without going into off the
Yeah.
oncoming traffic. Yeah.
so they're all like,
It's
The
just super
comment-
noticeable to people now. Like, it's like, oh, wait, no.
You might be familiar with this, if you've been at Idlewood, there's bump outs there.
Yeah.
I think here was that the community jumped on Facebook before the construction was complete.
Yes.
The concrete didn't even dry, that we could get out there and paint them yellow,
Yes.
and didn't give them a chance. And then now that they're yellow and the signs are up, I feel like it solved a lot of the visibility issues. It was just let them get them done, and then make the.
The only comment that I've heard was, you know, what about trying to get a fire truck around those? You know, I'm like, well.
I'll go
Wait,
around.
wait.
I'll go over.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, we'll go over it,
Yeah.
right?
It's okay. It's gonna happen.
We'll make, they'll be sustainable to a fire truck. We'll be okay. We plant natives, they're used to being run over by fire trucks.
Okay, anything else?
Do we wanna go back to 7 next month?
7 is next month.
Yeah, so go back to 7.
I'm not gonna find it.
Go back at 7.
Well, you won't have to change the website, because it still says 7.
Do we need a motion?
No, it's the, I had them advertised
Yeah.
for June at 6.
Okay, so we don't need to do a motion or anything,
It's how-
I'll change it back.
That's all we advertised.
Okay.
So we're all good.
Okay. Back at 7 next month.
Once in 5 years.
Okay,
They're not letting me
I
forget.
would entertain a motion to,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second the motion to adjourn.
okay, any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
You can signify.